Okay, hey guys. Hello SUNDAE Talks. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are Nerd Industries.
Hi, I'm Tom.
I'm Seb, and we want to talk about how to build an interactive experience for the world's most digital Adidas flagship store in 10 weeks. And we start at the beginning. So our buddies from Adidas called us and said, okay, sorry, we have to get closer together, said, we call about the new flagship store in London.
Splendid, let's see it.
We want to open with a digital bang.
Go on then, please.
And we already bought a screen.
You already bought a screen?
Yes, it's touch sensitive.
It's touch sensitive, oh.
And we put it on the floor.
You put it on the floor?
Yes.
Well, how big is it?
Well, it's 12 by 6 meters. And this was our reaction when we heard that they had a 12 by 6 meter screen on the floor. That is huge. I mean, you're all familiar with the Volkswagen Golf, right? It's like a 4 by 2 meter car, roughly, as represented here. And for another representation, we have the screen. So you could easily fit 5 Volkswagen Golfs onto that screen, just for reference, right? So then they said, there's one more thing. The touch functionality is broken, unfortunately.
Oh.
But we still need some interaction on the floor.
Well, we'll find another way, no worries.
And we need a creative gaming idea on top.
We can do that too. When was the store opening again, you said?
Well, is in 10 weeks.
Okay, no problem.
So that was the look we had on the faces. We were a bit excited, but a bit worried too. So let's go on then. We sat down and thought of some cool ways to utilize the whole weight of the screen. And we came up with some ideas. This is the first draft you see right here. We did it in booklet form. And after some fine tuning, we had a great first presentation, which looked roughly like this. And after some minutes, they said, I would really like this one.
Cool, that's our favorite idea too.
Of course it is. So, and it's called Creators Court. That was the working title. And what it basically means is that you can go onto the floor and you start moving. And while you're moving, you create like a pattern. It was like generative art. And the more you moved, the more expressive the pattern got. But the cool thing was that when you were finished, we sent the art you created to a printer and you put it on your shirt. So you could take a shirt home with you. And the idea came from that every Adidas store in every major city has a custom city shirt. Even in Hamburg, if you look closer, you have a city shirt. And we thought, why not take this one step further and do a uniquely generated T-shirt for every visitor? So, and then they said, can we go back to the overview, please?
Sure.
We said, sure. And then they said, hey, we really like this one as well.
Oh, no way. That's our second favorite idea too.
Of course it is.
So, LDN challenge is our second favorite idea, of course, and the whole idea is kept simple. So we sat down and thought about what if you could actually test some real Adidas products directly onto the floor, maybe in an expressive and playful way. So actually we came up with an agility game that gets harder the further you advance. So in advance we also enabled some mechanics like the key major things where you can choose between different sports, 3 of them, or you can walk between different movement patterns, as you can see here in the renderer. And we also wanted to enable multiplayer functionality. So in case you're on a shopping tour with your friends and you're in a store and you want to break the store record, you can either do it on your own or you can do it with your friends, which is pretty cool, we think.
Oh yeah, then they said, do you think you can develop these 2 games instead of just one? Because we really like both.
Sure, no worries.
So again, we had a cool look on our faces when we left the meeting. Still very excited, but still a bit worried. But this was the situation we got out of the meeting with. We had 2 games to develop, a tracking functionality to fix because the touch functionality of the floor was broken, and we had 8 weeks left. So how do you create a user experience for a screen like this, you know, the big installation? Basically, we had no idea. Because we had no reference and no way to test the whole thing because it wasn't built yet. So, and it wasn't set to be built for another 4 weeks, and time was running out. So we had to improvise, and we set up a scale model in our offices. I think it was roughly half the size of the whole thing. And we put some beamers on the ceiling and to project, you know, a gaming area or whatever. But that gave us some good reference, and we figured out 2 key components to start with. The first one was size, obviously, because it was not like a single game where you can step to the left and step to the right. You could run like 12 meters across the floor, you know, and cover great distances. And this was really, you know, a thing that impacted the gameplay and the ideas we did. And the second was how to control the whole game. We knew that we wanted to do something with your body, the tracking, but actually how precise it was, if you use your arms and legs, or if you just use your body position, we didn't know in the beginning. But thankfully, the tracking technology we used limited us to some simple interactions.
So, as Sebastian said, the tracking of limbs was not as precise as we thought. So, even if there were more than 3 people in the tracked area, so our interactions on the floor kept simple. And we splitted them up into move and stand and hold. Where move means something like you're on the floor and you have your designated area and you can walk around. Stand and hold in turn means something like you have to stand still to submit or to move further into another dialogue on the actual experience you're in. But let me give you a quick technical detour about our tracking method we used. So, in fact, we used about 8 RGB depth cameras to cover the whole spot. So in contrast to the normal stereo cameras, we also used the infrared spectrum to avoid some interferences causing by the floor and wall displays. So by using this technique, we highly increase our tracking accuracy, so that was quite necessary. And for some nerds around here, we actually use the Orbic per se cameras, which are the ones who actually have an own OS on it. So they are the world's first camera computers. They're quite impressive and definitely a closer look worth it. So you can see one of these bad boys hanging around, looking onto the floor.
Looking awesome.
Looking awesome. Yeah, and that's the end of our short technical detour.
About the tracking method we used.
Yes.
So with these basic mechanics established, we could apply the gameplay mechanics we thought about in the beginning and forge them into wireframes, because we needed a plan for the whole thing, of course. And here you can see a short slideshow of everything we did. We don't want to talk about this in detail because it would be way too much, but lots of wireframes. But I'm sorry, I can tell you that by far the most important ones were the user journeys, the flowcharts we did in the beginning, because from there we had like the first plan for everything. We sat down and thought about how to put this whole complicated technical process into some simple boxes, and in the best case scenario come out with a linear process. And here you can see the example, like the player enters the room and what he does, and we even fitted the Adidas infrastructure in there. And it's not really a linear process on this chart because we ran out of space, but you know what I mean. And same goes for the London challenge. You can see the player starts there, he chooses a game, he plays the game, he takes a photo, blah, blah, blah. This is the whole thing. And here as well, we have a linear process. To sum it all up, these were the key to everything, to be honest with you. They put us all on the same page because, in the beginning of a project, everyone has his own ideas in his head, but when it comes down to business, it's somewhat different sometimes. But as soon as we had these approved by the client, we had a blueprint for everything, for coding, for designing, for everything, which leads us to the user interface and the design. We had 2 major tasks there. The first one was creating an intuitive interface that tells the players how to play the game, even from 12 meters away. And the second was to creating the look and feel of everything. And we even got to design some t-shirts, which was pretty awesome. But first we had to cover some groundwork, because you can imagine this was not the regular screen you put on your desk or you have on your wall. These were like little LED tiles that were put together for a huge screen, so they had a completely different resolution. And as we said earlier, we had no way to test the whole thing. All we had were technical specs, you know, like numbers. So your design that you did, you know, went from this to this. And that was something you really had to keep in mind for designing the whole experience.
Yeah, especially when it comes to designing for the LDN challenge. And we basically started out by designing the sport courts for football, basketball, and tennis. And here you can see some of these first designed in an overview. And basically all the game court outlines based on the same style. So only the background image differs from the outline. So in case depending on sports, the background is more bolder than the others. But at the end, Adidas wanted to go the more traditionally way, and so we did. So these are the final designs for the courts, and they are more realistically and have some more color in it. So we went further with these designs. But the most important work went into the interfaces, and with the help of our wireframes, quite a lot wireframes, we actually ended up here. And this is only a small cutout of all designs we made, but it's quite enough to give you some rough idea how the actual elements are playing with each other. And another great thing, especially when it comes to coordination with Adidas, was we presented our designs in some special rendered scenes. Here you can see it. And this was only to give Adidas the right look and feel, and we wanted to show them in which direction we are actually developing in. And we knew this was the right kind of visualization because we had our designs now in a 3D space, and even this actual 3D space wasn't built yet. So this was the right way to go.
Yeah, and to add to that, it was one thing to design like on a screen, 2D flat screen, you know, but it's something entirely different to design in a 3D space. And at one point, we even thought about creating like a virtual reality preview of the whole thing, you know, for the client to check how it's going to look like. But we ran out of time, unfortunately. But yeah, designing Creators Court, the second idea, had different challenges. Here you can see some of the renderings we did for, you know, client approval and some interface. But I want to talk about another stuff. The UI wasn't the biggest challenge we had with this one because we did the London challenge first, UI-wise, and we knew how big buttons and typo had to be, you know, even to be readable 12 meters away. The challenge was something different because we promised uniquely generated T-shirts for everybody. So we had to deliver somehow. And they let us, which was pretty cool. So we dug in and did some programming. I'm sorry, this is how it looked like. Lines of code, lots of code. And we came up with this. And even some more examples. And we called them the London shader. And they were based on the Open Framework C++ Fluid Solver that we found, and we added onto that code and, you know, customized it to our needs. And after some more fine-tuning and even more lines of code, it looked a little something like this. This is actually this idle state screensaver we used for the whole screen installation when nobody was playing a game or using the whole thing. So after that, we had the basics, and then we needed to put it, you know, into a design to put on T-shirts like a square. And this was the idea we came up with together with Adidas. And you can see we have different colors and different patterns, and they were all generated uniquely, so they're not the same. And of course, we had to put them on shirts to test the whole thing. And here you can see our first testing prints we did, and we had they were really cool. They sent us like a heat press, you know, a printer where you can print some papers and you can put on the T-shirt in a heat press, and then you had to print on the shirt, which was pretty cool. And as soon as we're ready with that, we went to London City.
Yeah, so guys, we were really excited to finally hit a spot, and our first trip was like, okay, we knew we would face a construction site over there, but we didn't expect this.
Yeah.
So I mean, you literally can hear the chaos in these pictures. And long story short, after some long days and some cold beers, actually, we became aware of that the actual work on site went slower than expected. So yeah, here you can see the whole floor wrapped up. At the end, all we could do was to install all the cameras in place, do some basic visual testing, as you can see here in the background, and to start with our tracking calibration. Yeah, but fortunately, we had another trip to London, trip 2. So now facing a cleanly installed digital floor, we started out with calibrating all the cameras. And this is how it works. Actually, our tracking software gave us some X and Y coordinates. And all we had to do was to transfer them onto the floor and mark them as our hotspots. So we're starting out from our origin, right in front of the wall behind. We quickly defined our hotspots, and after this work, we only had to edit some lines in our big S code editor. So yes, this one is a huge screen. We tweaked some lines in here to get this installation up running, and we had some more installation work to do because during calibration we had to tilt, move and rotate the cameras several times until they really reached their final position. And because they real physically position on the floor had to be the same as in our software. So for me that meant to be climbing up the chair and going into the squat, doing laser measuring all the time. But it was worth it because after all these midnight squats, we ended up with a nice and clean body tracking area. This in turn enabled us to dive into our testing sections.
Was this one day or?
This was one whole evening, yes.
Oh yeah.
So guys, one thing we've really learned on this digital floor was when it comes to great user experience is it's all about the right timing. Because at the end, we had to ensure that every user has the capability to achieve his goal. So in other words, to create his own unique shirt. And with this in our minds, we validated all the steps from the very beginning till the end. And we made sure that every user can achieve this goal. So trip 2 ended with a very impressive, clean installation experience. And yeah, this is not the end yet, because we had a third trip to London, trip 3. And therefore, I want to welcome you to the London Challenge. So, due to the calibration work we did last time and all the midnight squats, actually we had a quite good tracking already. So, here are some point of view shots from the experience. And here you can see these animations and transitions. And at this point, all we had to do was some last fine-tunings and to do our testing routines. And we also made sure that everything works out and works fine as we expected. Here's some shot, hitting a spot, getting some score. There was also some exercise we did. Yeah, it was quite interesting there.
Another workout.
Another workout, yes. So at the end, we also made sure that every user gets his own result on his smartphone. So by scanning the QR code, a special designed web page opened up, and you could easily, scroll around and enter your name to go into the high score list. So we finally made it. And therefore, we want to show you the actual final result now.
So in the end of our talk, we have some famous last words. We could only complete the project successfully because we had a great partnership with Adidas. They trusted us with everything we did, and we trusted their planning and everything they did. And that's it. That was the secret of it all. So thank you for your time.